Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Chinese Water Dragon. A giant water monster has been caught on camera in China. A pedestrian standing on a bridge managed to capture a remarkably clear video of an unknown monster slithering through the water. What kind of monster this was remains unknown. However, the evidence overwhelmingly points to the fact that it's certainly something unusual. The footage appears to show a creature like a massive snake moving through the water. It seems to have no visible limbs and kind of looks like the Loch Ness Monster. Those who have seen the footage have even claimed the creature bears a shocking resemblance to Chinese water dragons from legend. Of course, there's always the naysayers who come out to ruin the mystery. Many say it's nothing but a kind of whip kelp, something that can be seen moving through Chinese rivers like a long, slimy snake. Another explanation is that it could be an oarfish, a rarely seen deep-sea fish that normally comes to the surface just before a natural disaster. Yet another theory is that the monster was only a Chinese alligator, historically known as muddy dragons. Many have attributed the entire Eastern dragon mythology to these mysterious Chinese reptiles. But what do you think? Could there really be creatures of legend living in the rivers in China? Let me know your thoughts down below. Number 9. Sleeping Menace. For 400 years, the underwater volcano of Colombo off the coast of Greece has been quietly sleeping. The underwater volcano is close to the Greek island of Santorini, an ancient place that has been home to civilization since before the Egyptian pyramids were built. But the volcano's long slumber has finally come to an end. Scientists have just discovered that it isn't sleeping anymore, and that it could erupt at just about any moment. If that happens, it could trigger a tsunami so big and devastating, it could wipe out entire cities on the Mediterranean coastline. The last time Colombo erupted, 70 people lost their lives. This was back in 1650 AD, when the population was a tiny fraction of what it is today. Since then, Santorini has seen a significant amount of growth, and it's really popular in the summer. If the volcano erupts with the same ferocity as it did 400 years ago, casualties could be much greater this time around. And if it erupts with even more strength than before, the fatalities could be astronomical. But just what exactly did scientists discover? They identified a previously unknown magma chamber deep inside the sunken volcano. What alarmed them was when they noticed that the magma chamber was gradually being filled up. It's filling with magma so quickly that researchers from Imperial College London are focusing on real-time monitoring. According to a geophysicist, the chamber extends about 2 miles below the volcano, and although an eruption is possible, it's not imminent. Still, researchers want everybody to know that the volcano does pose a serious threat. Colombo is a type of highly explosive volcano known for creating huge eruption columns. These columns can be several miles high, shooting an insane amount of volcanic ash into the atmosphere. It's also highly probable that when it does erupt, a tsunami will be triggered, making the entire eruption a worst-case scenario. And now for number 8. But first, it's shout-out time! I want to give a big thank you to Jackie Edward for the super thanks and for supporting this channel. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for more videos like these. Number 8. The HMS Audacious. The HMS Audacious was a dreadnought battleship built for the Royal Navy in the early part of the 20th century. It was completed in 1913 and had a very brief career. The English ship was sunk by a German naval mine while maneuvering around the coast of Ireland during World War I. It was only active for a little over a year. The Audacious was then commissioned on October 15, 1913, and was destroyed on October 27, 1914. When the Audacious hit the underwater mine, it slowly began to flood. Luckily, the majority of British soldiers on board were able to escape with their lives. Only one petty officer died as a result of the ship exploding when a piece of shrapnel hit him. To this day, the HMS Audacious is the biggest warship to ever be sunk by a naval mine. It was so embarrassing for Britain that the Admiralty refused to allow word of its destruction to get out. They didn't want the Germans to know what had happened. It was the History Channel that finally filmed the wreckage of the HMS Audacious for a TV program in 2008. They worked together with nautical archaeologist SS McCartney to film the sunken wreckage at a depth of about 223 feet. It still sits 17 miles from Tory Island in the North Atlantic Ocean, with a huge chunk of the ship blown apart from where it hit the mine and exploded. Number 7. A sunken civilization. A recent discovery made off the coast of Prince of Wales Island in Alaska has revealed a secret history about the people who used to live there. Scientists say evidence of a sunken civilization supports the theory that the original North American settlers traveled along the shoreline and lived off the sea. A group of Canadian archaeologists helped make the discovery. They found an ancient weir deep underwater in Chacon Bay. The discovery came after the shadow of the long-lost object showed up on sonar images taken over a decade ago. A weir was a type of barrier used by Native Americans to trap fish. These were some of the earliest fish traps ever used and are still utilized today by people across the globe. This particular one was put in place at the end of the Ice Age and has been sitting beneath sea level for thousands of years. Scientists believe that through simple fishing devices like the one found underwater, prehistoric people could have easily lived on Alaska's shoreline. Forget about agriculture to develop civilization. The indigenous people of Alaska likely developed their own civilization simply by harvesting enough fish to feed thousands. The sunken fishing weir is proof of a complex culture living in Alaska, long before civilizations emerged in Mesopotamia. Number 6. Ming the clam. After spending 507 years in the sea, the oldest creature that ever lived was captured by scientists and killed. The animal was Ming the clam, an ocean mollusk that was discovered in 2006 off the coast of Iceland. Researchers with Bangor University collected about 200 ocean mollusks off the Icelandic seabed, then took them back to their laboratory for testing. It was part of a larger project focusing on climate change. These seemingly ordinary clams were killed shortly after being captured. Then they were frozen on the research ship for transportation. Nobody thought it was a big deal at the time, and it wasn't until the clams arrived at the university and researchers started studying them that they realized they had just murdered the oldest animal in the world. The thing about mollusks is that scientists know they have an extremely long lifespan, with most of them living to be over a century old. And just like trees, clams add a new ring to their shell every year they're alive. Ming had 410 rings, meaning it was over 4 centuries old when it was captured. Scientists were shocked because they had never seen a clam with so many rings before. They weren't sure how reliable their counting method was, so they put Ming under a microscope. That was when they identified Ming as being approximately 507 years old, born in 1499. It was tragic that the oldest creature on the planet was killed, but scientists are able to make some great breakthroughs in the science of biological aging. Some have even suggested that in the future, studying the remains of Ming could reveal some kind of secret to immortality. Number 5. A morbid shipwreck. England's oldest intact shipwreck, a vessel from the 13th century, was recently discovered in the English Channel off the coast of Dorset. On board the ancient ship, archaeologists found a collection of marble stones, some medieval crosses, and rather morbid cargo. The discovery was made by a local charter boat skipper who requested permission to dive the site. Then, scientists from Bournemouth University showed up to do some underwater archaeological excavations. It's not the oldest shipwreck ever found, but it's the earliest shipwreck that still has its hull completely intact. That means the body of the ship is largely undamaged, something that's practically unheard of for a boat that sank 800 years ago. We don't know the name of the ship, only that it dates back to the reign of King Henry III, and that the trees used in the construction were chopped down between 1242 and 1265 AD. It was likely a transport vessel used to bring large shipments from one place to another, particularly used for transporting limestone rock that was coveted by builders in Europe. Marble stones would be quarried in Dorset before being transported to Europe on ships like this one. In this case, though, the ship was carrying a pair of ancient gravestones. The morbid cargo was found perfectly preserved by underwater archaeologists. The gravestones look the same now at the bottom of the ocean as they did in the 13th century when they were made. Unfortunately, the gravestones don't have any names chiseled on them, so we have no idea whose grave they were destined for. Number 4. Ship in the river. Maritime archaeologists have found the broken remains of a cargo ship in a German river. The ship is 400 years old, dating back to the Hanseatic period, when European travel guilds ruled the trading routes in the Baltic Sea and North Sea. Between the 13th and 17th centuries, trade in Northern Europe was highly regulated. There were organized guilds who oversaw the transportation and sale of pretty much all goods in and out of the region. The ship in the river came as a huge surprise, because most vessels that are that ancient don't survive. After being submerged for 400 years, wood typically rots until it becomes indistinguishable from the rest of the sea slime, but scientists think this particular ship may have been sucked into the seafloor and covered in mud immediately after it sank. This preserved it like a mummified boat at the bottom of the River Trave, not far from the city of Lübeck. The ship may have been a galliot or a single-masted cargo ship. Archaeologists from Kiel University in Germany say over 150 barrels have already been found intact around the wreckage site. This indicates the ship was carrying a huge cargo of quicklime when it sank. Quicklime was an ancient ingredient that was needed in the mortar used for building great works of stone. It likely came from Scandinavia, either in Sweden or northern Denmark. Then it was on its way to Germany, where the quicklime would have been used in constructing anything from great cathedrals to medieval tombs. Number 3. Vanilla Vader. Scientists recently discovered an extremely creepy creature in the depths of the ocean. A colossal woodlouse that looks surprisingly like Darth Vader was discovered in the Gulf of Mexico. The disgusting yellow critter is just over 10 inches long, making it 2,500% bigger than the woodlice you typically find in your backyard. The critter is one of several new crustaceans that have been identified in the Benthic Zone, one of the deepest parts of the ocean. The creature is of the genus Bathynomus, and it shares some disturbing similarities with Darth Vader's helmet from the Star Wars franchise. This new addition to the family has been nicknamed Vanilla Vader because of its pale, milky exterior. It's known only from a single specimen that was found off the coast of Mexico in 2017. Huang Mingqi from the National University of Tainan in Taiwan said the crustacean is evidence of strong ecological diversity in the Gulf of Mexico. The isopod, distantly related to the common woodlouse, lives at a range of about 2,000 to 2,600 feet below sea level, and it's a scavenger, meaning it spends most of its time combing through debris and dirt for something to eat. What do you think? Do you agree with the name? Let me know in the comments. Number 2. A Titanic discovery. On April 15, 1912, the Titanic received a warning about dangerous icebergs in the Atlantic Ocean. The SS Mesaba tried to notify the Titanic that there were icebergs on their route and that they needed to be very careful. But unfortunately, the message never reached the bridge, and later that same night, the unsinkable ship sank after hitting an iceberg. The vessel that warned the Titanic continued its existence unscathed for the next 6 years. But during World War I, the Mesaba was blasted to bits by a German submarine. It was hit by a torpedo, ultimately killing 20 people, and afterward, the ship sank to the bottom of the ocean. It suffered the same miserable fate as the Titanic in the end. For a long time, nobody knew the final resting place of the Mesaba, but now researchers from Bournemouth University in the UK have discovered the lost ship sitting at the bottom of the Irish Sea. It was found split almost entirely in half. Scientists used multi-beam sonar to scan the sea floor, identifying over 273 shipwrecks. They illuminated submarines, trawlers, and all kinds of other broken vessels over an area of about 7,500 square miles, and one of these ships ended up being the SS Mesaba. Number 1. The Avro arrows. The Avro CF-105 Arrow was a sophisticated aircraft engineered by the Canadian air industry during the Cold War of the 1950s. It was a jet interceptor designed specifically to fight against Soviet bombers. But when the budget of the aircraft became an obscene 1 billion Canadian dollars, the project was abandoned. Canada never did become a major producer of military-grade aircraft, with the Avro Arrow being one of their last great endeavors. And in 2017, one of these machines was found at the bottom of Lake Ontario. In the 1950s, Canadians were concerned about a potential attack by Russia through the Canadian Arctic. People were concerned that Soviet troops might try to seize Canada's frozen north. For that reason, many manufacturers began a desperate bid to make more war machines. But because of the expenses, not much ever wound up being done. However, the first Avro Arrow was unveiled in 1957 and broke 4 speed records. It was around this same time that an Avro Arrow wound up at the bottom of Lake Ontario. It's believed the aircraft was launched from the Royal Canadian Air Force Base in Prince Edward County, and by some grave error, it ended up in the lake. After it was found in 2017, experts with the Canada Aviation Museum and the Royal Canadian Air Force helped lift the aircraft to the surface for the first time in over 60 years. Since then, 4 additional Avro Arrow jet interceptors have been discovered abandoned in Canada. Thanks for watching! Which underwater discovery did you like the most? What would you like to learn more about? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!